focus on this first row is creating like a row of odd percussion instruments that you can sequence in a generative way. So you can like have like a self-playing sort of weird IDM drum machine thing. So that's what all these are focused on. And I'm going to go over our drum modules first. So our first module that I showed you guys before is the GMO, which we can probably turn up a bit.
We can do that.
Cool.
Oh yeah, that's better.
Yeah, so GMO is a lo-fi sample player. So you can see different samples with this knob. And the pitch pot on this module also changes the resolution of the file. So as you change the pitch bit, it gets faster and slower, and also gets lower quality or higher quality. Start time of the file and end time of the file, and you can turn looping on and off. That's GMO. So the thing that's neat about all of our stuff actually is it's all digital and reprogrammable. So there's firmware updates for some of our modules that totally change the behavior of it. And for other ones, it's just updatable so you can hack them or flash updates to the firmware if there's something wrong with them. But with GMO specifically, there's two other alternate firmwares that you get with the module for free. There's the Mongrel and the Bobcat, and they're two totally different drums. So GMO is like a sample player, the Mongrel is like a low tom kind of kick drum thing, and the Bobcat is like a hissy like hi-hat clap sort of thing. So I'll show you guys the Mongrel next. So you've got decay time for the onboard DCA, so it's like amplitude. And then you've got two oscillators here. You can change the pitch up. And they both go into a ring modulator. So you get these like really clangy kind of tones, really nice like low tones. And finally, the snarl switch turns the oscillators from sine waves into square waves, so they're like metallic sounds. So that's the Mongrel. Then we've got Bobcat here. It's two identical channels. We're only using one of them right now. But you got, oops, sorry, that's it. This is Bobcat. There we go. So you got decay time. And then pitch is tied to a resonant high pass. So yeah, like I was saying, the GMO, Mongrel, and the Bobcat are all actually the same circuit, same firmware. So you get all three of them when you get the GMO, which is pretty sweet.
How do you, what's the process for changing the firmware?
So there's just a micro USB on the back of the module. On the back of the module is actually a Teensy, like a development board, like an Arduino style board that has its own USB port. And when you update firmware, you literally just plug it in and drag a file onto it and push a button. So hopefully it's not too much of a pain in the ass. And there's a bunch of different sample banks you can also flash to the module. Not just the stock clangs, but there's like different drum machines and like some really weird sound banks too, which is pretty fun. So that's the GMO, Mongrel, and the Bobcat. Then we've got the Muskrat here, which people seem to really be into. So this guy is, it's like a lo-fi wavetable drum where you can choose the wavetable you're listening to. It's also got got wave folding. The decay section over here actually has 3 positions, so you can do long, medium, and short decay. And with the decay all the way open, it's actually a good chance to show off the muskrat switch down here. So what that does is it actually overclocks the module and feeds a random number into the output of it, which makes everything like glitch out and sound really effed up. So you get like cymbal sounds and like weird glitchy percussion. You can kind of think of it as like a white noise switch, basically. So that's the muskrat. Then we've got the cricket here. So as I was saying before, it's like a blip and beat generator. So it's basically just got 4 trigger inputs, and they are directly proportional to the incoming triggers. So if it's high, the note's going to be high. If it's low, the note's going to be low. There's no decay or anything. So it's good for these little short percussive bursts of pitch. And you can make the incoming pulse longer or shorter, and that'll make the note longer or shorter. Straightforward for that. So those are our voices of our system. Those 5 voices. And the thing that's nice about them is these have bipolar CV inputs. So your knob is like an offset, and then the modulation moves around from that. With the Muskrat, we did this experiment where we actually wanted to make the pots attenuators rather than offsets, just to see how it worked in the system. So when you plug a bipolar voltage in here, this actually becomes an attenuator. Now with the Cricket, it has a Cricket input here which pings a Vactrol, and technically that is a CV input, but I like to use it as like a trigger input. And what that allows you to do is get these like laser zap kind of sounds. Let's actually use, so you get those like chirpy sounds. So that's what that's for.
That's this one right here.
Yeah, that's the Cricket right here. So with all these bipolar CV inputs, we wanted to make a modulation source for drum stuff that was sort of like a macro control that you could mold to a bunch of different modules. So that's what the Deviant came from. So I was explaining before that the Deviant's a bipolar random voltage generator. So you basically trigger it from whatever your clock source is that's sequencing all your drum modules. And then you get 2 random voltages that are output, where you can create a window of random voltages anywhere in that bipolar range. So normally if you were to use like sample and hold or like a random voltage source, it would go over the whole voltage range, and when you attenuate it, it would just change the top end of the range basically. So you'd only have like one parameter control over how random something was. Now with the Deviant, you can have sort of arbitrary windows, so you can choose certain ranges of random to give like subtle fluctuations to a drum, or in the case of this system, changing sequences and stuff without it spraying all over the place and being completely random. So to show modulation on some of these, like we can start back with the GMO, and we'll just put it in the same trigger mode, and now we're going to trigger the Deviant at the same clock speed as the GMO, and use it to change the samples. So with Deviant all the way open, that's like turning the specimen knob all the way left or all the way right. It's the full range of random. But you can dial it in so you can only select a few of the samples, or have it choose a little this way and a little that way. So you can just choose the range of which ones you want to randomly go to. about Deviant that's cool is it has a slew output, so that changes the transition to be smoother. So it'll like wiggle in between those values rather than just being part steps. So we plug into the pitch envelope of GML, you'll really be able to hear that. So that's a slew all the way down, and as we turn the slew up, basically what the Deviant does. And now to talk about our newest module that sort of ties all these things together, so it's not just a clump of random stuff, is Mito, which is our sequencer that we announced yesterday. And what Mito does is it's a 6-channel polyrhythm generator. So it's all based on division, so you feed it a really fast clock, and then you have the ability to select different divisions with each of these knobs per channel. And then there's global swing up here and global pulse width down here. And the thing about Mito is it was also made with bipolar inputs for everything. So the way I wanted people to use the system in the super idealist way, where everybody owns all these modules and actually reads the manuals, which nobody does, but if they did, one channel of the Deviant was meant to be like used as your like macro sequencing channel. So it's like how generative and weird your sequences are. And the other channel of the Deviant would be multed out to all of your drum timbre inputs. So in like this tiny row, you'd have one channel doing your random sequencing at a given speed, and then the other changing the timbre of everything. So I can kind of show that off here. We've got the Mito triggering all the modules here. Try to get back to something useful. So we got GMO and our kick. We've got the Deviant modulating the divisions of 4 of these 6 channels I'm going to show you. So first I'm going to actually unplug the Deviant. That would probably make the most sense, so we can hear what Mito's doing. So here's GMO in channel 1. We've got Mongrel in channel 2. Muskrat in 3. Plug the Deviant into that now, and once you sort of like define your grid of the rhythm or like your groove, you can then modulate around that randomly and get some cool results. So
what's clocking everything?
Oh yeah, sorry,
man. Can you just for my sake, I'm kind of slow.
Yeah.
Break this down again. What does Mito do? It's 4 channels.
It's a 6-channel trigger sequence.
Okay, 6 channels.
Yeah.
Good.
So we're using that. The first 4 channels, it's going to be GMO, Mongrel, Muskrat, Bobcat, Cricket, and we're triggering 2 of the channels on the Cricket.
Cool.
See, it's like 1 knob per channel. Is it like a probability or like a...
It's straight division selection.
Okay, cool.
So all the way left is 16, all the way right is 1, and everything in between. So you can dial in random, not random numbers, odd numbers like 15, 14, 13, etc. So you can get like looping polyrhythm kind of stuff. Does anyone else have any questions, by the way? Am I like boring the hell out of you guys?
No, this is good. One thing
Okay,
I want to
cool.
mention is host. After you're done here, for the people live, we're going to hold up the modules again to show you the controls.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's really solid.
For sure.
This one you don't have any real prototypes we can hold up. So
Yeah.
this is the best we can do with this.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's
go
cool.
ahead.
Yeah. So so it's those 6 division channels going through a swing circuit. That's what it does. Anyone else have any questions?
And what's clocking it?
The count, which I haven't talked about. So the count is going to be our follow-up to Mito. So Mito's in production now, and then up behind that is going to be our master clock module. Can you guys even? Yeah, you can kind of see it.
Kind of see it. I'll move it.
So I'll just show it to you guys on mute. So can you see the lights though? It's pretty useless without the lights.
You can see it.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's a master clock module that I made that for me was something that every time I would set up any of my patches, I use a variety of different gate sequencers. Ironically, I couldn't really find a clock module that had a pot on it that was like in the right range for using, because like normally you reach for like a square wave LFO or a tap tempo based clock source or something, and I just wanted like a regular speed pot that had a coarse and fine control on it. I only found a few options with that, and they didn't really have the feature set that I wanted. So it's got a master speed with an overall range switch, so you can go super, super, super slow or really fast to almost 1 millisecond pulses. And that's got a bipolar CV in for it over here. Good.
Yeah.
So, that's like for me like the idealized clock speed control, where you can get something somewhere and then actually nudge it up or nudge it down to where you exactly want it. And then it has global pulse width, which is another issue that I've had with certain clock sources. Different devices, SQ1, pocket operator, whatever, everybody takes different size pulses. So I wanted a variable pulse width. And then there's a bipolar CV in for that as well. So if you were sequencing drums with this, you can make the notes longer and shorter. Now the thing that's really fun about this is these 4 switches over here and these 4 outputs down here. So you can't really see them based on the graphics, but there's these 4 numbers around each of the jacks that looks like some Da Vinci Code shit, but it's it's actually just like a really simple guide that may be weird at first, but the 4 selections are top, bottom, left, and right. And aesthetically, the way you can think about them, and it'll make sense in a second when I break down what each jack does, but you can think as top and bottom as like bars and beats, basically, or sorry, evens and odds, like going from like triplet to like eighth, or not eighth, like triplet to I can't think right now, 3s to 2s. So like even and odd for that switch, and then the other one would be like bars and beats. So that being said, the layouts for the jacks, when these are down, it's just 2, 4, 6, 8, right? But if I were to flip this up, it then becomes 3, 5, 7, 9. So it's like your even beats and your odd beats. Then if we go back to bottom, we're still in even, right? So it's 2, 4, 6, 8. Then if I were to flip up the second knob, it takes those numbers and divides them by 4. So that's like your like bars. So 2, 4, 6, 8 becomes 8, 16, 24, 32. So that's all that does. And then if we were to flip the odd switch up, it would be 12, 20, 28, and 36. Pretty straightforward. And then finally, it's got an upbeat and a downbeat thing here, which changes the counting from upbeats to downbeats. So you can change the orientation of something that's coming up on every other beat or whatever. And a start-stop switch, a master start-stop switch. And the thing that's fun about this is when you flip it, lots of people who I want to do this as like the head of the chain for a clock rather than having it be a clock modulator or something you plug into. So a common thing on clock modules would be to have a reset input, which would reset all the divisions and everything. But this one actually is a single pulse that gets fired when you start it. So the intention of this is like you would take that reset and then feed it down the line to all your other resets. So when you start this clock, it resets all the counts of your other sequencers to 0. So that's basically the idea behind that. Ben, actually over here, significantly contributed to the code on both of these modules and really helped me understand these concepts, and also contributed some design feedback also. So that reset thing specifically came from Ben, which I thought was a really, really good idea and made a lot of sense. It was really cool. So props to Ben Davis for helping make things happen.
Yeah.
Round of applause. That being said,
what you're saying there is that this is kind of a master clock for.
yeah, it's like the way I envision it is like the ideal, like if you have like a bunch of sequences and you're doing like a bunch of different drum stuff, like this would be like a great like master transport kind of module. And it's affordable and small. It's going to be about 180 retail. And like having like dividers and multipliers and all the other logic down the line would be cool for like modulating stuff and everything. But I wanted this like compact head of the chain clock sort of thing.
And it's designed, the switches, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
they're sort of performance switches, so you can change
Sure.
change the timing
Yeah.
on the fly.
Yeah, of everything.
Of
So it's
everything.
like it's like if you had a patch with like 5 sequencers in it or whatever, and you wanted the whole beat to just break down into halftime, you would just flip the switch, and you'd be at halftime. So if you're doing like their tasteless music.
And once again, so the 4 outputs that you
Yeah.
have there are sending out different divisions.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. So that's basically the count. And the thing is I made it specifically, the reason for it was when I started using Mito with my system, I was like, wait a second, I need really, really fast clocks because this is a division-based sequencer. And then I started going back to other sequencers that I have that are division-based or use some sort of like logic or something where they're dependent upon breaking down a beat. And I was like, wait a second, I don't have a really fast clock that I can like actually like really use musically. So it sort of came out of the need, which was cool, and integrates into the rest of everything. Because the other thing that I'm about to show you in this patch is what I like to do is I like having my random voltages, specifically with Mito. If I'm doing generative sequencing and I want the rhythms to change musically for what I consider like musical changes, I want those random deviations to happen once every X number of bars. So I don't want necessarily a beat-oriented random change. I want these like macro of like every bar, every 2 bars or whatever, I want to randomly change the rhythm. So with Mito, which I can show you, we're going to start the clock. So GMOs are like 12-bit kick. Mongrels are like low tom kind of thing. Muskrat's doing those car plus kind of thing. Bobcats are goofy flat. And cricket is those like chirpy beats. So something I didn't really demonstrate before was the swing. So when I turn swing up, you definitely hear it on the faster divisions. Now straight and strong. Swing. And now we're going to do the fun stuff with the deviant. So I'm triggering once every bar, basically. So I'm clocking the Mito at a 16th note pulse, like a pretty fast pulse. And once every bar, I'm going to be triggering the deviant. And I'm going to take that random voltage, and I'm going to mult it to like 3 or 4 of the different channels. So every bar, you'll hear the pattern randomly change within a given setting on the deviant. So we're going to go back to our groove. And I'm going to start with cricket, because that's like the easiest to hear. So that's those high-pitched frequencies. Now I'm going to start tweaking the deviant. So I'm going to turn the bottom of the deviant up pretty high, because I want the modulation to make the cricket go faster. I don't want it to slow down and divide, so I'm only going to feed it more positive voltages. I actually realized I didn't have this patch correctly at all. So.
Yeah, you pulled them all out, but that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We
Just give me
can
a,
tell.
yeah, it'll take a few
It
seconds.
wasn't changing though, you are correct.
This is why. So, in Moffenzeef tradition, bring everything up. There you go. All right. So we're triggering that, and yeah, okay. So, as I was saying. There we go. So you hear every bar, it either gets more complex or less complex. Now, the whole reason, like, I wanted a sequencer like Mito to have a knobbiness to it like that was when you're modulating the sequence, you want to still play it. So the knob, because it's an offset, it sort of becomes like the complexity of whatever you're playing with. This is the new base point for modulation. So if I were to swing this all the way left, it'd be way less busy. random source, and now I'm going to feed the muskrat. So that's this channel. Now while I'm doing this, just to demonstrate something I was showing before, I'm out of spots on my bolt right now, but I'm going to take the second channel of the deviant, and I'm going to clock it at a faster speed, and I'm going to use that to control the timbre of muskrat. So you can hear how they work together. So now we're going to do it basically at 4 times the speed, and I'm going to change the wavetable of muskrat, the second channel. cloudy or...
I don't know if you mentioned the mutes, but I know you were...
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. There's mutes for each channel. So you can turn rhythms on and off.
Yeah.
You can be like, yo, this is in halftime. It's like a breakdown. And then you're like, no, it's not. Yeah, so that's that. Cool. So, oh, this is actually a good segue into the desktop stuff. So Muskrat, something that's really fun about Muskrat is it actually came out of a workshop synth I made for the S1 synth library here called the MSG that some of you guys have maybe seen. So it's just like a cheap DIY kit that's based on an Arduino compatible affordable microcontroller that doesn't need that much supporting circuitry to use. So it's a really simple interface if you want to write like really bare bones garbage DSP code on, and then just immediately start using it. So it's got 1/4" outs and a DC jack in, so it's for people who maybe don't use Eurorack or are transitioning from like using like other noise devices or pedals or whatever, and they're just getting into DIY and maybe you're like on that weird fence. I don't know. But that's kind of what they came from. And the Muskrat is actually, the oscillator core from this module is actually from these devices. So on the back of each of the Muskrats is one of these chips. So the difference between them and the Muskrat is the Muskrat has obviously CV inputs and a decay pot, so you can trigger it and do drum sounds with it. But the MSG was like my way of experimenting with different oscillator cores for this drum module before I committed to one. So the result of that is there's 4 or 5 different chips that you can get that all do different synthesis algorithms. And the Muskrat is sort of the chip that I settled on for this, which comes with the MSG. It's sort of like an amalgamation of all those different experiments. So I've got 3 of them to show you today. The first one I'll show you is frequency modulation. So on each of them you have power and volume and your outs, and then you have a switch that does something and 3 pots. So this is the FM one. So you've got pitch, you've got LFO depth, or sorry, rate, and then depth. And the switch on the top left kicks the modulator oscillator into audio rates. The other one I was going to show you is the phase distortion chip. So you have pitch again. This is your phase distortion amount, which is like sort of a weird, like it almost sounds like a filter and a wave folder in one, but it's a technique that Casio used to do to mimic a lot of the sounds for like analog filtering of a square wave to give like brass patches and stuff. But basically what it is it's like a hybrid of distortion and phase modulation where you're shifting the wave over and pushing it into clipping range. So you get these cool.
Wow. Wow. What is this called again? Phase distortion?
Yeah. So you got that, and then there's a bit shift pot, which is bit shifting everything out of the output of it, which basically accounts for it's basically like times 2, so it's like an octave switch basically. But it also craps up the signal even more. So those are triangle waves. If we flip the switch, we go into saw waves, and then you can get those happy hardcore hard sync waves. Everyone knows how useful those are. So that's the phase distortion chip. And then lastly is the granular chip. So when I first designed the GMO a little while ago now, it was originally just like in a box and like ran on AA batteries and didn't have CD. It was just like crappy noise box. And I tried to like recreate the prototype GMO with this patch. So when I originally designed it, it was from my friend Matt, who I had made a bunch of these like CMOS circuits and like weird contact mic things for. And he was like sort of experimenting with this type of music, and he was like, I want something, but I don't really want it to sound like the analog stuff. So I made him, like the GMO came from like making him this like garbage digital noise box. And in hindsight, I probably could have just done it on this chip. So this is like an ode to that and like a, you know, a way to get your hands on that idea. So it's the granular chip, and it's just a bunch of really, really short grades of my voice that I recorded of me saying A-E-I-O-U. You can't really hear anymore. Yeah, you can't really hear the vowels anymore, but they're really, really, really short snippets of my voice. And then you can change the size of the file. So you can get those like weird, like scrubby granular sounds. Sort of like circuit bend speak and spell, kind of. And then in the top left, there's a reverse switch, which reverses the grain. Which honestly, because the files are so short, doesn't really have an audible effect. But if you were to put other sounds into this and manipulate it with slightly long ones, you would definitely hear the flipping of it. So that's the MSG, and this is available in kit and bare PCB form, so you can get just the PCB and just the chip. Like you can make this super, super, super cheap if you want to. Or like Fang made ones with some pretty kooky, cool, crazy enclosures. You could go hardcore like that. Why not?
But they're not available in a built form.
We did some built ones, and those
Maybe
are
special requests.
yeah, sure. But they're not.
retailers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no. It's just
Well,
that.
it's probably a lot of work.
Well, it was just like a really short run of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, there may be a potential for more assembled units, but it was more designed. Honestly, I didn't really have costs in mind when I designed it, so it's not necessarily the most scalable thing because I went with really fancy switches and fancy standoffs. So it may or may not be in stock in the future, but it will be available as DIY for a very long time. So PCBs and chips will always be easy to come by. Kits and assembled may fluctuate. So that's the MSG. This one, which will be readily available in kit and assembled and other forms, I'm actually really excited about this. It's really, really simple, but I had a lot of fun making this. And
You like that, like
yeah, okay, yeah. So if everybody just pretends.
Oh,
yeah,
Nice.
so itchy.
Yeah, I like
So this guy,
The Jarmageddon.
the Jarmageddon, yeah, it could be.
It's in the right spot on the thing, it's just not updating.
Ah, great.
Well, that's cool.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Stroboscopic.
Sick. Anyway, so this guy, even easier to assemble than the MSG, even smaller parts count, and then actually comes in a case, because the main comment I got, and criticism with MSG was the people who were interested in this were like, dude, I can't throw this in a backpack, like the capacitors are gonna snap off. So I was like, oh man, what can I do that can sort of like fit stuff in a really easy to use, non-fragile, it's glass, it's actually very fragile, but in a more,
Well, you can find it though.
wow, boy is it hot in here. So, you know, a more rugged enclosure that's easy to come by. So I actually found out the other day, this is the prototype that was verified from 2 days ago, but I didn't actually intend on this. This was an incredibly happy accident, but it fits like perfectly within the nanometer into a tiny 4-ounce mason jar. The original idea was that it would be like the pint ones, but it like just like through some act of science or whatever fits perfectly. But I was going to show you guys what it sounds like. It's just a really simple noise oscillator that's built on the same platform as MSG, but it's just one knob.
It's an out, a CV input, a knob, and a switch.
Yeah, that's it. And it's this algorithm that I made that doesn't make any sense at all. It's just this like weird series. It's like very similar to like Byte Beat or anything like that, where you sort of take random things and cram them together and see what happens. And at the core of it, technically, it's two square waves that are just like intermingling in like really crazy ways and like flowing and doing all this crazy stuff. But basically what it winds up sounding like is this totally gnarly thing that you're like overclocking and making cool sounds with. It's got a CV input. Look at that. So it's got a 0 to 5 volt CV input. Shout out to Devin who brought this puppy out here. So you got, you know, your typical grubby noise guy or gal or person modulator thing, and your noise jar, and you do this with it. It's a unipolar input, so the pot is basically the bass line, and then the modulation gets added to it. So. Now we're going to clock the sequencer with the count. And make really bad music. And that, I got all the parts and the cardboard boxes and everything in my apartment, and my girlfriend wants to murder me. So hopefully those will all be out of my apartment in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to start building these and packing kits on the 8th of August. And I'm just doing a small run of like 100 for the first batch. So there's going to be kits and assembled. And hopefully going to be doing wholesale too. So if you can't get them from me, you'll get them from a super fun-loving, friendly synth shop near you. I guess that's the live stream. Yeah. Yeah, so that's Drummageddon. Actually, if anybody wants to check it out and open it up and see how easy it is to build, you're welcome to just pass it around. It's a fun thing to look at. So that's going to be the new thing. And we have MSGs too, if anybody wants to take a closer look at those. Don't touch my modular. Yeah. Anybody have any questions about anything? No?
What's the price of these?
Yeah.
Price! I haven't talked about price of any of these. So the price for that's going to be 80 assembled, and kit's going to be 55. And then I haven't come up with a number yet.
That's 80
for like,
bucks, that's all?
Yep.
That's a lot of, you get a lot of noise. For 80 bucks. I love it.
CV input 0 to 5, and it's got. Sorry. Mito's going to be 279. Yeah, 279 retail. Count 180, 179.
And then we have Muskrat.
Muskrat is 129.
So Muskrat, one more time.
Yeah, Muskrat, we got Tail, which is decay time. I actually didn't talk about a really cool feature on this. So it's an envelope follower. So you don't need to just feed it triggers. You can actually plug a contact mic directly into it, which I found out the other day. There's enough juice in it. And this becomes a decay that follows the amplitude of whatever you
Where do you plug it?
into.
Into Bang?
Right into Bang, yeah. So you can plug audio into that. You can plug a contact mic into it. A CV source can just be plugged into it, so you can
That's
control
cool.
it with an LFO. It's basically the VCA input, but before it hits the VCA, there's a slew limiter on it. So that's the thing that's funky about that. Scratch is wavefold, and dig is wavetable selection. Chew is pitch, and the Muskrat switch flips that gnarly noise thing on and has an input for it, so you can actually turn it on and off with an external trigger. So it's Muskrat 129.
Okay, so that's trigger input.
Yeah, it's trigger input at the bottom, and that also doesn't have a comparator on it, so it will stay high as long as you stay high.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Alright, that's Muskrat. What's over?
Cricket, Deviant.
Cricket, where's they go? That probably was.
Deviant's right over here.
Oh, there you go. Hey, watch out. Keep an eye on that guy.
Yeah, we should go over here just for the audience.
Yeah, sure.
Out there.
So Deviant.
For the 3 people who are no.
Hi, Mom. So these are the window range for the voltage. So each of these knobs, -5 to +5, and it allows you to do just a window of voltages. So this is
And it's
like
2 channel, right?
2 channels. The bang input here is normaled into the second channel, so you can only, well not only, but you can feed it 1 clock and it'll trigger both of them. And there's CV inputs at the bottom that are adjusting these parameters, so you can even have more random modulation. And then slew for each channel.
So turn all the way to left, there's no...
This is basically the default setting here. So
Yeah.
if you're like this, it's like a sampling hole. So it's like a full range random with no slew.
Gotcha.
And then more slew here, and then now you're deviating and doing your Moffenzeef stuff. Awesome. So that's that. If you wanted unipolar, that would be unipolar forward random. Everybody see why? It's 0 to 5. And then if you wanted -5 to 0, it would look like that.
What happens when
That
the
makes
bottom goes over the top?
It just stops at the top level.
It
And the
just-
reason why is because you can like have it basically as an offset at that point. And then when you're feeding it modulation, it'll start doing cool stuff because it tops out at wherever the top is. Because it's like, because you're controlling these separately. So you can get these weird interminglings with CV where it'll like truncate at the top, but then swing down, etc. It's all about that window between the two of them. So that window is variable. So that's deviant. And cricket.
4 channels.
4-channel blip beat guy. Bang, 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 bang. Triggers, they stay high as long as the trigger's high. And then you've got 4 pitch knobs here. You got the cricket input, which bangs this very, very special.
It's a cool back tool.
Yeah, that is the result of some very interesting ideas. But basically inside...
That's what
this-
makes it work, right?
Yeah, so in there is, beneath this, actually I could probably, no, I'll break it. Yeah, I'll break it, yeah. So underneath the heat shrink, there's just a single 5mm LED soldered flush to the board, and there's 4 photo sensors on standoffs pointed at the LED. So when you're sending voltage into the cricket here, you're actually changing the brightness of the light bulb on the back of the module, and the 4 sensors are connected to these pitch pots. So
So you have one back tool for 4 channels.
yeah, but it's like a really ghetto way of doing a 4-channel back.
I like, yeah. So you can have 4 different pitches, but the same decay on all of them.
Basically, yeah, but because of the tolerance and the really cheap photoresistors and the way in
There's
which
some
it was
variance
built,
between them.
it's like, yeah, like if you were to turn the pitch all the way down on these, it would not be the same pitch. They would all be like kind of all over the place and really weird, and every single module is going to sound completely different because of that too. So it is not even close to anything per octave. It is like,
You hear that?
it is like,
Every one of these is unique.
yeah, and it's
That's
like,
interesting.
the other thing too is I actually
I like
missed 2 resistors in the process of making this, which proved to be a really awesome happy accident. So basically on the buffer for the back troll, normally, you know, it could have been in one way, it could have been a full 0 to 5 range,
Right.
but in actuality it's about 1.52 volts to 5 volts. So it kind of, like no matter what you plug into it, it's kind of always going to do the like, pew thing, 'cause it's like always starting from a higher thing. So that was actually a happy accident that I kind of wound up really enjoying. About
It's a
this
fun
module.
module. I mean, it really
It's-
works well. Actually,
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, if you haven't picked up on it yet, like we like to make really sort of off the beaten path, kooky stuff, and they're trying to sort of separate ourselves from other people by sort of coming up with different ways of doing stuff rather than
Not trying to imitate other.
yeah, and also
Finished
just like
stuff or
not really
whatever.
necessarily trying to make like the Cadillac modules of like, you know, the best, most pristine, like, you know, we're kind of just making these sort of weird characterized one-trick pony weird sound sources and things. Yeah. So
And then GMO. has got one more.
yeah, and
Where is my
GMO, I don't know where that is, but GMO is
Oh, there's some back here.
that was floating over there. Sweet. So GMO is it's basically a platform, but the default firmware is a GMO. So you can see on the back of every module is a teensy dev board. So this is basically like an Arduino that you could buy at a Radio Shack or something. And instead of integrating the teensy into this board, we bought them from Paul. So Paul makes money every time we buy one of these, and we're supporting the development of teensy. And it's a really rad project if you guys don't know about teensy. It's like a really affordable, super high-powered Arduino that now actually has an audio library, which you can do really gnarly synthesis stuff with. And we're actually developing some other stuff that's based on this platform. But the thing that's nice about it is you can get a non-proprietary firmware updater, and you can look at the code and adjust it really easily on your computer, and there's a USB port built right into it. So when you do firmware updates with this, you just literally plug it in, push a button on the back of the module, and you're done. There's no configuring or any crazy stuff. There's a simple application and a hex file.
There's the button.
Yeah, so to get the Mongrel and the Bobcat and any other sound sources, you just plug it in, drag a file, push a button, and you're there. So that's that, and that's the GMO. Yeah, that is $249 retail. And we also have panels for Mongrel and Bobcat available from another local business, MacPet Modular, and by Chris Northern. So if you want an aluminum panel from Mongrel or Bobcat, you can get it from him.
So specimen is the sample.
Yep, and then you got
Speed is obvious, the speed. This is a looping switch, so you can loop.
Yep.
Head and tail is the,
start and end times,
Start and end time.
and then bipolar CV for each of the
and then
other
bang is
buttons.
trigger input.
Yep.
That turns looping on and off.
Yep.
When the trigger's high. Okay, is that
Yep.
like the other module where it'll stay high until
Yep.
it receives another high signal?
Yep.
I like that. And then CV over specimen speed.
Yeah, and all four of those are bipolar CV.
It sounds great. So.
Thank you. Yeah.
Excellent.
So that's the GMO family of stuff. Anybody have any questions about anything? Is anybody really bored?
No, this has been really good. Actually, cool.
Well, I think what we're going to do next then is Mr. Andrew Dawes here from XLV. He's going to do a short performance, and then I figured we could just leave my stuff set up, and if you guys want to play with it and jam out,
Yeah, we
hang
should
out.
play more of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever you
But-
guys want to do.
We'll get Andrew going.
Yeah, let's do Andrew,
Cool.
and then I guess we'll just hang out and
Excellent.
nerd out and all that.
Yeah.
I want to thank Philip and Steve and Modular 8 for doing this. This is like the coolest thing ever that we can
Really appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions out there, there's a 30-second delay between what we're saying and what you're hearing, but just, send some comments and we'll answer them.
Yeah,
Okay?
gladly.
But next up is XLV. We'll let him start, okay?
All right. Turn the.
Is that enough room for you? Because we can move this.
Yeah, you want me to move
It's
it?
perfectly fine.
Let's
Dude, we're good. We're good. Thank you. sale up front. They're $5. $5 each if you're so inclined. Thank you.
That's great.
Yeah. Woo! There's also free stickers over there too,
Oh,
if anybody wants them. So
everybody likes free stickers.
stickers are fun. Yeah. Yeah. If anybody wants to play with any of the stuff,
Yeah, hey,
it's just gonna be set up.
Can we hear some more? A little, can you-
Yeah, I think it should be like free form.
Okay, free show.
From here
I'll
on.
start.
But yeah, if anybody wants to just like come and play with this shit, please. And in fact, it might make sense to sort of move it off the stage a little or something.
Oh, the jar. Oh, yeah, no, but those two boxes. Sound good.
All right, that's about as far off as it is. It has come down the mountain. So if anybody wants to.
Sorry, you won't find number one. This is freeform patching now. was thinking like one of my Moffenzeef row and sort of like
I would love like just to buy a drum machine.
we'll come by sometime and talk and put it together.
Processing.
It's nice. I like it.
Yeah.
I think people are allowed to.
I think I did a 4.
I'm actually getting free,
Oh, this is
guess that's it, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.